Osama bin Laden. After the September 11th attacks killed nearly 3,000 people, the founder of al-Qaeda became the most wanted man in human history, with a $25 million reward on his head. But for almost 10 years, he simply vanished. He cut off all phones and internet, communicating only through trusted couriers. And that was exactly the mistake that killed him. The CIA spent years identifying one of those couriers, a man known as Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, and in August 2010, they followed him to a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The house was 8 times larger than its neighbors, with 18-foot walls, no phone line, no internet, and residents who burned their own trash, and it sat less than a mile from Pakistan's main military academy. In the early hours of May 2, 2011, Black Hawk helicopters carrying SEAL Team 6 crossed into Pakistan undetected. One helicopter crash-landed inside the compound, but the raid went on, and on the 3rd floor, the SEALs found bin Laden and shot him in the head and chest. The operation took around 40 minutes, and within 24 hours, his body was buried at sea from an aircraft carrier. But among the documents the SEALs carried out were letters revealing that bin Laden had been grooming a successor, his own son. We'll get to him later. Qassem Soleimani. As commander of Iran's Quds Force, Soleimani spent 2 decades building armed proxy networks across the Middle East, and the US blamed him for the deaths of hundreds of American soldiers. He was unique on this list, a serving general of a national army, officially designated a terrorist. But Soleimani had grown comfortable, moving openly, posing for photos on front lines, and flying on commercial airliners under light security. On the night of January 2, 2020, he boarded a flight from Damascus to Baghdad. American drones were already waiting. Just before 1 a.m. on January 3rd, as his 2-car convoy left Baghdad International Airport, an MQ-9 Reaper fired missiles into both vehicles, killing Soleimani along with Iraqi militia commander Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. The blast was so devastating that Soleimani was identified by the red-stoned ring on his hand. 5 days later, Iran retaliated with ballistic missiles on bases housing U.S. troops, leaving dozens of soldiers with brain injuries. And hours after that, Iranian air defenses on edge mistakenly shot down a Ukrainian passenger jet, killing all 176 people on board. Soleimani never knew he was being hunted that night. The next man knew for years, and it still wasn't enough. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. As the self-declared caliph of the Islamic State, Baghdadi ruled territory the size of Britain at his peak, with a $25 million US bounty, the same as bin Laden's. But by 2019, his caliphate had collapsed, and he was reduced to hiding in Idlib in northwestern Syria, deep inside territory controlled by rival groups. The breakthrough came from inside his own circle, an informant working with Kurdish forces who even smuggled out Baghdadi's used underwear so his DNA could be confirmed in advance. On the night of October 26, 2019, 8 helicopters carrying around 100 Delta Force operators flew more than an hour across hostile territory to a compound near the village of Barisha. The commandos blew through the compound wall, and as they cleared the buildings, Baghdadi fled into a tunnel, dragging children with him. Cornered by a military dog, he detonated his suicide vest, killing himself and 2 of the children. A DNA test confirmed his identity within 15 minutes, and the compound was leveled with airstrikes before the helicopters even reached the border. The informant reportedly collected a large share of the $25 million. Baghdadi was found through years of painstaking intelligence work. The next man was found by pure accident. Yahya Sinwar. The leader of Hamas in Gaza and the chief architect of the October 7, 2023 attack on Israel was, by 2024, the most hunted man on earth. Sinwar knew his enemy intimately, having spent 22 years in Israeli prisons where he learned fluent Hebrew and where Israeli surgeons once saved his life by removing an abscess from his brain. After October 7th, Israel assumed he was hiding deep in the tunnels under Gaza, surrounded by hostages as human shields. They were wrong. On October 16, 2024, a squad of Israeli trainees on a routine patrol in Rafah exchanged fire with 3 men in the ruins. They had no idea who they were shooting at. A tank shell collapsed part of the building, and a small drone sent inside filmed a wounded man slumped in an armchair. face covered, with one working arm, which he used to throw a stick at the drone. He died moments later. Only the next day did dental records and fingerprints confirm it. A year-long manhunt by the region's most sophisticated intelligence services had been ended by chance, by soldiers still in training. But just 3 weeks earlier, Israel had eliminated an even more protected target, a man buried under entire city blocks. Hassan Nasrallah. For 32 years, Nasrallah led Hezbollah, building it into the world's most heavily armed non-state force with over 100,000 rockets. But he was also a ghost. After the 2006 war with Israel, he essentially never appeared in public again, addressing his followers only through screens. In September 2024, his organization began to unravel. Thousands of Hezbollah pagers and radios, secretly packed with explosives, detonated across Lebanon in 2 waves, wounding thousands of operatives. Then, on September 27th, intelligence confirmed Nasrallah had arrived at Hezbollah's underground headquarters, buried beneath residential buildings in southern Beirut. Israeli jets dropped more than 80 bombs, including 2,000-pound bunker busters, in a matter of seconds, collapsing the complex deep underground. Nasrallah's body was recovered largely intact, killed not by shrapnel, but by the sheer force of the blast. His chosen successor, Hashem Safiuddin, was killed in another bunker strike about a week later, before he could even be formally announced. Hezbollah suspected its security had been penetrated at the highest level, and with good reason, because 2 months earlier in Tehran, Israel had proven it could reach anyone, anywhere, even inside a guarded state compound. Ismail Haniyeh. As head of Hamas's political bureau, Haniyeh ran the group's diplomacy from exile in Qatar, and after October 7th, Israel marked the entire leadership for death. In July 2024, he traveled to Tehran for the inauguration of Iran's new president, staying, as many times before, in a guest house run and protected by the Revolutionary Guard. What he didn't know was that the building had been compromised months earlier. According to multiple reports, operatives had smuggled a bomb into his usual room around 2 months in advance, and the plan nearly fell apart when a broken air conditioner almost got him moved to a different room. At around 2 a.m. on July 31, 2024, with his presence confirmed, the device was detonated remotely, killing Haniyeh and his bodyguard. Iran's Revolutionary Guard insisted he was hit by a projectile fired from outside, a version that avoided admitting their own guest house had been infiltrated. Israel stayed silent until its defense minister admitted responsibility that December. But here's the detail almost no one noticed. Haniyeh died on July 31st. Exactly 2 years earlier to the day, another most wanted leader had stepped out onto a balcony in Kabul. Ayman al-Zawahiri, the Egyptian surgeon who co-founded al-Qaeda and took over after bin Laden's death, carried the same $25 million bounty as his predecessor. But by 2022, he had made a fatal miscalculation. After the Taliban retook Afghanistan, Zawahiri moved his family into a safe house in central Kabul, apparently believing the new regime made him untouchable. The CIA tracked his wife and daughter to the house, but for months, analysts never once saw Zawahiri leave. What they did see was a pattern, an old man who liked to read alone on the balcony at the same time, morning after morning. At 6:18 a.m. on July 31, 2022, a drone fired 2 Hellfire R-9X missiles at that balcony. The R-9X carries no explosive warhead at all. Instead, it deploys 6 blades and kills through sheer precision. Zawahiri died on the balcony while his family inside was left unharmed. The Taliban scrambled to seal off the site and deny he had ever been there. Zawahiri was killed by a missile designed not to explode. The man who started this entire era of manhunts 16 years before was killed by precisely the opposite. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, a Jordanian street criminal turned militant, Zarqawi founded al-Qaeda in Iraq and dragged the country into sectarian civil war, pioneering the filmed executions that later became the Islamic State's trademark. By 2006, his bounty matched bin Laden's at $25 million, and a dedicated American task force hunted him full-time. The weak point turned out to be his spiritual advisor, Sheikh Abd al-Rahman. U.S. intelligence simply followed him for weeks, until June 7, 2006, when he drove to an isolated safe house in a palm grove near Bakuba. Once surveillance confirmed Zarqawi was inside, 2 F-16s were called in, and at 6:15 p.m., 2 500-pound bombs flattened the house. Incredibly, Zarqawi was still alive when Iraqi police pulled him from the rubble. He died on a stretcher minutes later as American soldiers stood over him. But his death proved something uncomfortable. Killing the leader didn't kill the organization. His group survived, rebranded, and within a decade produced the Caliphate of al-Baghdadi, the man from earlier in this video. And if Zarqawi showed an organization can outlive its leader, the next man showed a death can stay unconfirmed for half a year. Mohammed Deif. For over 20 years, Deif commanded Hamas's military wing, the al-Qassem brigades, and alongside Sinwar, he planned the October 7th attack. But Deif wasn't just wanted, he was practically a myth. His name literally means the guest because he never slept in the same place twice, and for decades, only 2 or 3 photographs of him were known to exist. He had survived 7 assassination attempts, reportedly losing an eye and limbs, which only fed the legend that he could not be killed. On July 13, 2024, Israeli intelligence located him at a compound near Khan Yunis, meeting with Brigade Commander Rafa Salameh. Heavy bombs flattened the compound, killing Salameh, but with Deif, there was silence. No body was recovered. Hamas denied his death, and Israel took weeks just to declare him eliminated. The final word came in January 2025, when Hamas itself confirmed he was gone, almost half a year after the strike. The man who survived 7 attempts had not survived the 8th, but at least with Deif, there was eventually an answer. The next death on this list has never been explained at all. Hamza bin Laden. Remember those letters from the Abbottabad raid? They confirmed that Osama bin Laden was grooming his son Hamza as his heir. Hamza had appeared in propaganda videos since age 14, and as an adult, released recordings calling for attacks on the West to avenge his father, earning the nickname the Crown Prince of Jihad. In February 2019, the US put a $1 million bounty on him. But here's the strange part. He may already have been dead when they did. In September 2019, the White House released a statement of just a few lines, confirming Hamza had been killed in a US counterterrorism operation in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. And that was it. No date, no location, no method. To this day, the operation has never been described, with officials saying only that it happened sometime in the previous 2 years. Al-Qaeda never even released a eulogy, and in the years since, rumors have repeatedly surfaced claiming he might still be alive. If Hamza's death made no noise, the next one triggered a legal firestorm in America itself, because the man in the crosshairs carried a US passport. Anwar al-Awlaki. Born in New Mexico, Awlaki was an American citizen who became Al-Qaeda's most effective recruiter, an English-speaking preacher whose online sermons earned him the nickname the Bin Laden of the Internet. From Yemen, he helped direct Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and investigators linked him to the Fort Hood shooter and the 2009 attempt to bomb an airliner over Detroit. So in 2010, the US government did something unprecedented. It placed one of its own citizens on a kill list without charge or trial. After 2 weeks of drone surveillance, on the morning of September 30th, 2011, as Awlaki and his companions finished breakfast and walked to their vehicles in Al-Jaf province, Hellfire missiles destroyed the convoy. Killed alongside him was Samir Khan, another American, the editor of Al-Qaeda's English-language magazine. Then, 2 weeks later, a separate strike killed Awlaki's 16-year-old son, also a US citizen, in what officials later described as a mistake. Awlaki was eliminated by remote control by operators he never saw. But that playbook, tracking a target through his communications and striking without a soldier in sight, was written 15 years earlier, with a device far smaller than a missile. Yahya Ayash. Known as the Engineer, Ayash was Hamas's chief bomb maker in the 1990s, blamed for attacks that killed around 90 Israelis, making him the most wanted man in Israel. He was also nearly impossible to find, moving between safe houses in Gaza, sometimes in disguise, never sleeping in the same bed twice, the same habits Mohammed Deif would later copy. So Israel's Shin Bet stopped chasing the man and targeted his trust instead. Through a collaborator, they arranged for the collaborator's nephew, a friend Ayash trusted, to lend him a phone. Hidden inside was a small explosive charge. On the morning of January 5, 1996, the phone rang in a house in Bet Lahia. It was Ayash's father calling. Israeli aircraft circling high above confirmed the voice on the line was Ayash himself, and the phone was detonated against his ear, killing him instantly. An estimated 100,000 people flooded his funeral, and within weeks, a wave of retaliatory suicide bombings killed around 60 Israelis and helped swing an election. But Ayash's death did something bigger. It was the blueprint. The tracked communications, the turned insider, the remote detonation. Almost every operation in this video descends from that single phone call in 1996. If you liked this video, check out our next video about the soldiers doing all of the dirty work, on the screen now.